Hi, I am a UI designer at American Eagle and Aerie, and I'm here to talk about AEPI month with my older sister Jen, who is currently the product marketing manager at Facebook.
Hi, nice to meet y'all. Thanks for having me, Christina.
No problem. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me. So I just wanted to ask, first off, what is the importance of AEPI Heritage Month to you?
Honestly, I didn't even know that it existed until this year, which I think makes it even more important that it does exist and that we're raising awareness around it. I'm very happy that it exists. And I want to start using it as a starting point for conversations with friends and family about Asian American heritage and what it means to us and what we can do to raise awareness about our identities and being diverse in the United States. And it's meaningful to me because I grew up wanting desperately to be white, like all the time. So it's great that America is becoming more open to diverse voices, and we're seeing better AAPI representation in the media.
How do you feel your heritage has shaped your path and you as a person?
Yeah, great question. So I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and Austin, Texas in the late 80s and early 90s. All of my friends at school were white. Everyone in the media was white. So all the Disney princesses, all my Barbies, all the superheroes like Batman and Superman, they were all white. And my parents couldn't interact with my friends' parents because there was a big language barrier. I grew up thinking that white people didn't poo. That's how superior I thought they were. I also thought that I would never.
What? You never
Yeah,
told me that.
I also thought that I would never be able to get a boyfriend or find a husband in America because I was Asian. So I've had to develop a lot of grit to cultivate a sense of identity. Being Asian American means like you don't really feel like you belong here in America, but you also don't really feel like you belong in Asia either. So I like the term third culture. I love the explanation. Third culture kids are kids that grew up in a culture that is different from that of their parents, but it's also different from that of their homeland. And then I also feel like because of all of this resurgence in Asian American voices in the media and just like public figures that are Asian American, I'm kind of at this like Asian American renaissance, like the way that I think about my Asian American identity. I really embrace it now. Like it's not something that I'm ashamed of anymore. I think a lot of what helped that was I met a ton of Asian Americans and Asians with dynamic personalities that I could really relate to, especially in college. I kind of got out of like my predominantly white bubble in Texas and Oregon and a suburb of the Bay Area that was predominantly white. I saw a lot more prominent Asian American and Pacific Islander voices in the media. My husband is Taiwanese American, and he actually always grew up in predominantly Taiwanese American communities. And so he's always kind of like had that as part of his identity. He's like a lot more confident about it. And so that's helped me to become more confident.
Awesome. Yeah, and I feel like I totally relate to that as well since, I grew up in that Bay Area suburb as well. There seems to be a new spotlight and awareness on violence against marginalized people, even though it's always been the case. So how are you coping with all of that?
Yeah, so it's clearly not a good thing that there's a lot of violence against marginalized people. But what I do think that is good is that it's being reported on. So I think, as you said, this has always been the case. Like this has been happening for years and years and years in this country and actually all over the world. But we're actually willing to talk about it now. So I see that as an opportunity to educate other people. And as people of color, we can have more solidarity with other people of color. Now is not the time for a division. We need to really unite and really make sure that diversity is accepted and embraced in America and in the world.
So I guess, I feel like a pretty consistent trend is people don't really have a lot of awareness about the AAPI community. So how do you recommend that people educate themselves about the AAPI community? And are there any favorite resources you suggest people to check out?
Yeah, there's a few. So I really love the Instagram account. The handle is So You Want to Talk About. It's not specifically about AAPI issues. It's really just progressive philosophies all around. But they have a lot of really amazing spotlights on AAPI issues as well as issues that impact other communities of color. Books are great too. And two books recently read that are also like light reads, like they're not too crazy, but also very educational, very accurate to the Asian American experience. The comedian Jimmy O Yang, he's famous from Silicon Valley. He wrote a book called How to American, and it's all about his journey becoming engrossed into the Asian American experience as a student at UC San Diego. He kind of had to deal with his parents expecting him to become like an investment banker, especially because he was actually born, I think, in Hong Kong. So he had like even stricter requirements from his like very conservative Asian parents, but he kind of branched out into becoming a comedian. So that was like really enthralling to hear about his experience. He's also hilarious, which helps, and he's very, very relatable. And then the other book, and I think Christina, you've been reading this one too. It's called Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. She is a musician who performs under the moniker Japanese Breakfast, but she just really gets that Korean American experience right, hitting the nail on the head. Growing up in Eugene, Oregon, so that's also very relatable because I was born in Portland, Oregon, and being in this predominantly white community, visiting her grandma in Korea in the summers and what that experience was like, super, super relatable. And she also describes Korean food so beautifully and so accurately. And in fact, I tried to go to H Bar this past weekend because I was like so inspired by her book.
Yeah, I will also throw in like one more book that's been my favorite, which is Minor Feelings by Kathy Park Hong, just because I feel like hers is an interesting one because it talks about the Asian American creative experience, because I feel like there's not a lot of books out there that really talk about how our identity impacts our creative work. And she also contextualizes the Asian American experience really well with other minority experiences in America, and also relates Asian American history to colonialism, which was a lens in which I never really saw my identity as a part of. So that has been actually one of my all-time favorites. I'll conclude with asking if you have any favorite family traditions and which ones, and explain a little bit about the significance of them.
Yeah, so one of our family traditions is on New Year's Day. We celebrate the solar New Year, but I think we can actually do this for both solar and lunar New Year if we want to really go wild one year. We always eat dumplings and rice cake soup on New Year's Day, which I love. I love all carbs, so I'm just like any excuse to eat carbs, bring it on. Really, really into that. It also doesn't hurt that our mom's rice cake soup and dumplings are delicious. It's really, really awesome. Really excited to eat together with the family next year when this whole coronavirus thing has ended. And then I'll also say that my husband's family is Taiwanese and I love their traditions too. And they actually go really all out for Lunar New Year. So it's always kind of like a huge raucous party. We all get together and we're all just like eating, like everybody goes to Costco and buys like 100 packs of all these like moon cakes, and it's really delicious. So those are two of my favorite family traditions.
Yeah, I mean, New Year's definitely same here, and I would probably say Korean culture is embedded in food being an expression of love,
Oh,
and that is what I love about Korean culture.
yeah, absolutely. Almost to a fault.
Like also like, birthdays, you always eat like myeokguk and like, japchae, which is like a seaweed soup and this stir-fry noodle dish. And when you eat noodles for your birthday, it's supposed to symbolize long life.
Yeah,
So we eat that as a way to make sure that we live forever.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love those traditions as well.
Yeah, oh my God, I'm so excited to have mom's food again soon.
It's gonna be great.
Well, thanks for chatting with me, Jen.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I miss you a lot.
Yeah, excited to
And
see you soon.
I hope you have a happy AAPI month.
You too. Yeah,
Bye.
yeah. Take care. Bye.